let's start with this. I'm going to give you 4 images of teaching from the last 100, 120 years. Now, rather than putting a whole bunch of words up on the page and up on the screen here and showing you quotes and documents and other things like that, I'm going to use actual images that represent particular trends or particular approaches to teaching that have been prevalent in the United States over the last 100 and 120 years, all right? I'm going to give each one of these a title, and then I'm going to show you an image, and the image might be a little bit extreme, but it's trying to make a point, and then I'm going to give you a motto as well for this approach to teaching, all right? So the first one is, let me move this out of the way, is teacher as lecturer. All right, so here's my image. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I actually think that it's been manufactured, right? I don't think he has a ladder where he can actually get up there, but it's communicating the point, right? So this is teacher as lecturer. Now, when we look at these images, I want a little bit of feedback from you. What does this say? What does this approach say about students? What does this say about teachers and the role of the teacher? What does this say about the methods of instruction? All right, I have 4 images, and so it won't take too long. So the motto for this one is this: students should be seen, not heard. All right? So think in terms of what does this say about students? What does it say about the role of the teacher? And what does it say about the methods of communicating to students? I'm ready to hear any comments that you would have on any of that. Students, teacher, methods of instruction.
The students are empty buckets, and the teacher is a spigot.
Okay, the students are empty buckets, or maybe blank slates, we like to say in education, right? And the teacher is a spigot that we turn and we fill up the bucket, or we write on the slate, right? All right. Good. Anything else about students? Yeah.
Students' ideas don't have value.
Okay, so what the student brings to the situation has no value. All right. Good. Now, that could be an overstatement, right? But that could be a general idea that often goes with this approach. Okay. Good. Anything about the teacher?
Just one-way communication.
Okay, right. So students should be seen, not heard. I should see you, but I don't want to hear anything from you, all right? Good. So all the communication is going in one direction. All right. How about the methods? We could say, well, lecture, right? Because it's a lecture, right? So what is a lecture? Well, it's the teacher getting up and actually saying ideas to the audience writing them down, and then taking the bucket on Friday and kind of pouring it out. See, look at all that I've collected in my bucket, right? Okay, so we've already talked about a few ideas here, and almost in a pejorative way, right? That, students don't know anything, the teacher knows everything, kind of a thing. Is there anything positive to this approach, though? If so, what? Yeah?
The students know, or the teacher does know more than students, so it makes sense that there be a weighted towards the teacher communicating towards the students.
Okay, so the teacher knows more than the students. If not, what is that teacher doing in that classroom in the first place, right? So let's hope that the teacher knows more than the students. And so you would assume that there should be more communication in that direction, because hopefully the teacher is a knowledgeable, mature adult who is helping students come along. If that's not that, I'll tell you this, the administration, parents, even the students assume that. And if that's not the case, then that's a problem, right? Good. Anything else positive about this? Yeah.
You teach a lot of people at the same time, because it's not like you need to give that much attention to an individual student, just sort of mass produce what you're saying.
Okay, so it's very useful in that you can teach a wide variety of people at the same time. It's hard when the students are in the driving seat or the teacher's not giving a lot to the students to actually meet all those needs, it could be impossible, right? So it's a good use of time. All right, we need to keep moving on, but keep these images in your mind. My next one is this. Teacher as trainer. Okay? Again, I don't know how many of you are PE teachers, but I went in and I did this. You can see the student and the teacher, right? So here's the motto, and I don't know about you, but I've heard this frequently. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I've heard that in education quite frequently, arguing for this kind of an approach to instruction. All right.
Government too.
I'm sorry?
Government too.
Okay, government as well. Okay, good. What do we know about students here? What do we know about the teacher? What do we know about the methods from this kind of an approach? Yeah?
It's driven by a task, completing a task.
Okay, completing a task, right? So rather than, we can do a little bit of a comparison. Rather than doing the knowledgeable thing, where the teacher is the knower and trying to make students knowers as well, in this case, the teacher is the expert doer, right? A task. And we're trying to help students also be proficient in that task, skills. Where the first one was more of a knowledge-based approach, this is more of a skills-based approach, right? We're not as interested in giving him a fish. In other words, we're not as interested in giving him knowledge. We're more interested in teaching him to acquire knowledge on his own. Teaching the skills of learning rather than the knowledge itself. All right? Good, bad, anything that comes out of that? Yeah.
I see the teacher as an encourager,
Mm-hmm.
right, to push the students and to keep working hard to complete their task.
Okay, good. So rather than, all right, come on in here, let me just tell you all I know, this is a different approach, right? The teacher's much more involved. Aware, when you're teaching skills, when you're accomplishing a task, often there's smaller steps along the way. The teacher's more involved in keeping track of those small steps in order that that person can be a skilled person. Good. Anything else positive or negative about this? Yeah.
The student can continue to learn without the teacher there.
Okay, so if kids get through school and all they know or all they have is what they know and they have not learned the tools of learning, that's a problem. If they don't know how to read well, if they don't know how to write well. All right? Good. Is there any negatives to this? Yes.
It's very much one-on-one. You have to come along that one. There's not multiple students in that activity.
Right. Even in my image, right? There's only one student. It's time intensive, right? Because if you're just doing a knowledge, a dump on your students, just kind of here it is, right? Now there's a little bit, how much did you get, how much did you get? But on a skills-based approach, it's much more time intensive. Where are you along the process? So it's a lot harder to lead a group of people perhaps in that. Any other negatives?
This image doesn't show any way in which the teacher is helping the student to get better or smoother at the task.
Okay.
The saying puts some idea of teaching them how to fish in there, but this image basically has the teacher urging them on and then struggling through it.
Right. Oh, so this is really interesting. He's telling the student how to do it, but he's not really doing it. Now we can look at his arms. Probably he actually does it, but he's not doing it here. With this kind of an approach, typically the teacher has to get in there as well. In fact, if you're interested in cultivating skills in your students and you're not demonstrating, modeling skills for them, that's a problem. In other words, if you're combining the two approaches, if you're taking a knowledge base and telling them how to do a skill and then expecting them to perform, that's not right. You should be in there showing them how to do it and saying, let me show you. Now let's do it together. Now you do it on your own. You've heard this before, right? Input, guided practice, independent practice. This is all coming out of the skills-based approach. Yes?
The student may be better than the teacher at the skill. he's having to go through the process, but that's
Yeah.
possible.
Yes, right. And it could be right here he's actually better, but in the end, isn't that kind of the hope of a teacher anyways? Is that your students actually go beyond where you actually are. So that's kind of a positive in a way. All right, we need to move. One more comment. In the last 10 years, there's research coming out, and you can take a look at it. I'll point to a little bit of it here. That be careful with a skills-based approach, because what we're discovering is that skills are not content-free. In other words, very few skills can be practiced or learned and then applied just anywhere you go. Skills are heavily connected to the content that you work with while you're using those skills. I'll say a little bit more about that later.